Hello and welcome into the newest episode of Pat's Latest. I'm your host, Mike Gambardella, and today we'll go over a previous Super Bowl MVP that has the path forward for, Stefan Diggs and his injury, where the Pats currently stand with their wide receiver room, and if another free agent is coming into New England, and what the Patriots' draft plans are, and where they have a big time hinge that could swing things one way or the other. Before we get into everything, make sure you go down and subscribe for our channel. Get in the comments and let us know what you think of the Patriots' current moves and what they still need to do in free agency before the NFL draft. And give us a like if you like what you hear before getting into our old episodes after this one. We start today looking at Stefan Diggs. I keep wanting to say Shedeur Sanders, but we will get to him at the end of this episode. But for Stefan Diggs, there's a lot of concerns and talk about signing a aging wide receiver to a big time contract, essentially one for $26 million. It is the guaranteed amount in this deal. And with the 3-year, $69 million total deal, that is a lot of money for a player that tore his ACL, that will be 31 years old, and who could potentially be the Patriots' number one option. Now, yes, he is a benefit for Drake May in getting experienced wide receivers, and one that have all-pro pedigrees is something you can't shy away from. But people are concerned because he did tear his ACL, and there's no guarantee he will be ready for the season. Looking back at it, after Stefan Diggs signed with the Houston Texans, he was operating more as the number 2 option behind Nico Collins for CJ Stroud in that Texans offense. He tore his ACL in week 8, which means he had over half of the year to get healthy, and now the offseason as well. While not the perfect scenario, it has given him a wide enough runway to get back to close to full strength. Stefan Diggs did have at least 4 catches in each of those 8 games. He had 5 games with at least 69 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns over that time frame as well. And that's in an offense for the Houston Texans that overwent some changes, we'll say. Joe Mixon really took over from the backfield. They became more of a running team as opposed to letting CJ Stroud sling it everywhere. So again, these things point to Stefan Diggs not taking a step back, but operating differently. And I think he will operate differently in this offense. Josh McDaniels is going to have Stefan Diggs do a lot of different things. And again, I think the time frame does line up where he can really start to push the pedal as you start to get towards training camp. Do things individually on the training basis, maybe not doing full team drills, but individual workouts. Learn the playbook and get up to speed while forming that relationship with Drake May. The previous Patriot with that path forward is Super Bowl MVP Julian Edelman, who tore his ACL at 32 years of age. He came back for his age 33 season and ended up having a career year where he averaged almost 71 yards per game, the second most of his career. Across the 12 games, he was back. Then the following, he posted his most productive season and posted 1,100 yards. So having a 1,000-yard receiving season is possible after this ACL tear, and possible for a player getting up there in age as long as they understand what their role is, how to protect their body, and how to prioritize catch points within a route tree. For Julian Edelman, in the 28 games in his post-ACL tear at age 32, not including the postseason, he went for almost 2,000 yards and 12 touchdowns, and again, averaging those 71 yards per game. So, again, there is a path forward. This is not uncharted territory. Yes, it can give you pause for the deal for Stefan Diggs, but I think all in all, a move that the Patriots absolutely had to make, one you can feel good about them actually shelling out money to do so, and at the end of the day, getting Drake May, something he desperately needs, and that is an all-pro wide receiver. Speaking of wide receiver, could there be one more on the way for the Patriots? Yes, the wide receiver room is getting crowded, at least from a numbers standpoint. With Kendrick Bourne, with Pop Douglas, with Keyshawn Booty, with Javon Baker and Jalen Polk, and with the new addition of Mac Hollins and now Stefan Diggs, that is a good amount of names around, but there is not a ton of production from those guys as well. And we know the two rookies in Baker and Polk from last year did not produce at the level that they were expected to, but there is more salary cap to be spent for the Patriots, and they could look at adding more veteran presence to that group and just see how it plays out, essentially. You know, Injuries are part of football. They're going to happen. Obviously, Stefan Diggs had his injury and can work his way back. Kendrick Bourne's did the same thing as well, as he will now enter really year 2.5 post his injury as well. So adding a wide receiver to the mix, at least from a veteran standpoint, would make a lot of sense and kind of see how these things play out. The Patriots could wait closer to training camp to do it, but if there's someone that they absolutely start to look at, whether that be Tyler Lockett, the Seattle Seahawks wide receiver who was cut as well and is still available, the Patriots have spent $355 million in free agent contracts this year. Would not be surprising to see them approach that 400 mark when all is said and done, especially knowing that a stopgap at left tackle is absolutely needed to really round out everything that they've done in this offseason thus far. Looking at some of the other big names, Amari Cooper will likely be too expensive. He is waiting out to get that big time deal and will probably get it for some needy team at some point. Stefan Diggs' addition makes it a luxury at this point. Keenan Allen is still available, but he is assumed to go back to the Bears at some point once their front office and Allen's agents find an accord at some point. The other name is Deontay Johnson, who is extremely talented but has played a bit of a ping pong role, getting signed, traded from Carolina to Baltimore, and cut and signed back as well, and likely too much of a headache for his off field concerns to go after. So, with Lockett being up there, again, seeing if the contracts would actually line up. The other two names to keep in mind would be Tyler Boyd, a longtime Cincinnati Bengal who often played second and third fiddle to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, who went to Tennessee this past season. Obviously, the numbers not great once playing behind, the likes of Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins for most of the season, and with not a lot of great QB play and offensive line in front of them as well. Finally, there is the only 25-year-old wide receiver and former Cleveland Browns standout Elijah Moore. Also, we know him from the New York Jets at his time there too. Could be an option, but again, trying to find more of that veteran presence, that bang for your buck, that low risk, high reward, high yield player. One way or another, there will be another addition to the Patriots wide receiver room, whether through the draft or through free agency. Looking at the draft a little bit closer, we talked about Will Campbell yesterday and him finally getting some good news from his measurements and workouts, and that his arms are actually 33 inches. Again, the length of your arms for a lineman becomes very important, especially at the tackle position, to get leverage, to get length, to have the ability to keep edge rushers away from your body and give time away from your quarterback, which you need at least that 3 seconds to let a route develop and let your quarterback get the ball out there. With the smaller arms, suddenly you don't have the contact point that you would necessarily need for a tackle to be able to do so, especially with edge rushers getting faster and faster each year, quick twitch and everything else. It really becomes a sticking point because only 5 tackles starting wise in the NFL are under that 33-inch mark. With Will Campbell getting to 33 in the latest pro day for him at LSU, it starts to take a little bit of the edge off and realizing that, hey, this isn't a big deal.
What we want to focus on here today is Will Campbell actually commented on this huge issue of arm length, and whether it's Dante Scarnecchia saying it's not a big deal, whether it's NFL draft pundits or even front office personnel saying that they won't go near anybody that's under 33 inches because it just sets them up for failure. And why would you go after a top 5 pick that isn't going to be a starting tackle and likely could have to play guard? I do think Will Campbell can be a top flight tackle in this league. And to his credit, Will Campbell had this to say when asked about his arm length. For 2 years, nobody had any measurements on me, and nobody said anything about my play. Good point, Will. And to his credit, playing in the SEC, he wrapped up just about every edge defender that came at him, and you had nothing to say about Will Campbell because no one was able to get around him, and he gave plenty of time for people to be able to do their jobs, namely Jaden Daniels 2 years ago. Additionally, he went on to say, so now, all of a sudden, arm length decides if I'm a good player or not. I think it's BS. Well put, Will. Let your play on the field do the talking for you and let the chips fall where they may. Again, Will Campbell, likely the top draft pick at the tackle position in this draft. A lot of questions surround it. And for teams picking in that 4 to 10 range, you likely have several needs and likely would go somewhere else as to go into a question mark with Will Campbell. You could easily pick someone like Tet McMillan, Aston GT, Jalen Walker, Will Johnson, or somebody else and actually fill a hole in the starting spot and don't have to worry about it. That said, I think Will Campbell can be a very good tackle selection in this draft. Speaking of the Pats draft plans and whether Will Campbell will be the selection or if it will be somebody else, it is quickly becoming evident that Shedeur Sanders is the key for the New England Patriots. A surprising statement considering that the Patriots are set at quarterback, but because they are picking at number 4 and because it is widely assumed that there are the 2 top players in this draft in Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, there is a scenario where one of those 2 players does fall to the Patriots at 4 because it's now being widely assumed that Cam Ward will be the number 1 overall pick to the Tennessee Titans, the Heisman finalist and quarterback from Miami. And with him going, if a quarterback needy team comes up for Shedeur Sanders, and namely the New York Giants were seen as that team, they've had a presence at all of Shedeur's games at Colorado this past year. Obviously, they have a need at quarterback. They went out and signed 2 free agents and longtime veterans in Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. Not to say that they can't be successful quarterbacks, but that is definitely not a long-term plan. If the Giants are looking to just completely revamp their quarterback room, stack it with a lot to support Shedeur and make sure he doesn't start in year 1, kind of take what that Drake May plan was last year and extend it out, it could make a lot of sense for the New York Giants. They could also say we feel comfortable with Russell Wilson over the next few years, along with Jameis Winston backing him up and feeding the league neighbors over the next year or 2. And if things don't work out their way, they are set up to, again, be towards the bottom of the draft and potentially go after Eli's nephew in Arch Manning. That could also work out for them. In that scenario, Travis Hunter would be selected by the New York Giants, and then the Patriots would be selecting at 4 with Carter and Hunter off the board, and suddenly you are really thinking about taking Will Campbell at that number 4 pick, because not only is he the best tackle, guard, offensive line prospect in this draft, he also does fill a need. And it's not a bad thing for the Patriots if you're drafting for need, if it happens to be the best player on the board. It is very much up for debate who that best player at 4 is, whether that's Campbell, McMillan, GT, Will Johnson, the cornerback from Michigan, Jalen Walker, the edge from Georgia. I think probably should slide up towards that spot. Again, I think if Hunter and Carter are off the board, the Patriots absolutely should trade back, but there's no guarantee that they will be able to execute a trade if a quarterback needy team doesn't want to come up to that spot. It could be a tough spot for the Patriots, but it is time we start thinking about what will happen if Hunter and Carter are off the board and who the Patriots actually will be taking at number 4 in this very realistic and starting to become very probable scenario. Again, things are going to change out and play out a lot differently in the next 4 weeks leading up to the end of April's NFL draft. The Patriots still have several free agents moves to make, namely at left tackle, and we will have everything for you here at Pat's Latest. We'll keep giving you that every day. In the meantime, make sure you get down and subscribe for our channel. Check out our previous episodes. Give us a like if you like what you hear. And get in those comments and let us know what the Patriots need to do to make sure they round out this roster to be competitive in 2025. Fight on, Foxborough.